You're listening to Moneyweb at midday.
Department of Home Affairs has re-gazetted amendments to South Africa's immigration laws after previously gazetting them and withdrawing them, you might remember. I want to make a little bit more sense of the confusion, and let's talk now to Marisa Jacobs, who is Managing Director of the company Xpatweb. And firstly, Marisa, what prompted the department to withdraw and then re-gazette these regulations, which, as I've just said, were originally published in March?
So the initial regulations were published a day before the closing date for commentary, and they were published exactly as they were drafted, even though there were a lot of comments given on the first draft to say some suggested changes in terms of those first draft. So it became apparent that those comments weren't taken into consideration, or at least not fully taken into consideration, and most certainly the comments that came through on the last day would definitely not have been taken into consideration given that they were published a day earlier. So that prompted lots of comments from stakeholders to say that the department hasn't adequately looked at the comments from public, and therefore they should not have published it before looking at that. And the minister then came back to say, yes, he was ill-advised and he shouldn't have published it. He immediately withdrew it and said that he would go and look at those comments to see if anything needed to be incorporated before republishing it.
So has anything specific changed given that problematic clauses have been removed?
There has been two distinct changes, which lines up perfectly with the comments that certainly we made as business in terms of what we were uncomfortable with. The first one is around remote work visas. The previous version had specific clauses in around when a remote worker would need to register for tax and when not. The updated version still has those clauses in, but slightly revised. And then the second change is on the points-based system that they're looking to introduce. We were specifically worried about one of the parameters, which is the ability to adapt, which we felt a points-based system is meant to be very clear, very predictable, and have objective parameters. So ability to adapt is it's a very subjective point to put in there, and we were quite uncomfortable with that being one of the parameters. They've now removed that, so which we're very pleased to see. But those are the two main changes, the two only changes that they made.
So is there new key criteria now under this new points system that you refer to that will allow skilled foreigners to qualify for work visas? In other words, will it make it easier for them to obtain permission to work in this country?
So the points-based system, as they've regulated it now, is still quite vague. They haven't exactly assigned how many points are going to be given to each perimeter. They've said that, in fact, the minister will gazette later on again for commentary exactly how it will work. So it's basically just introducing it into regulations, if I can say that. But certainly, yes, it's supposed to work, I would presume, like the Australia or the Canada system works, where each of those items on the list has a certain amount of points assigned to it. So it's easy for the applicant to see whether they would ultimately get the visa based on meeting those minimum points. And it's also easy for the adjudicator to assign the points and ultimately decide whether the visa can be issued or not.
Marisa, there's also something called the Trusted Employer System. How does that work and what benefits does it provide to large employers who want to fast-track work visa applications?
Yes, so the Trusted Employer Scheme rolled out on the 1st of March this year. There's 68 employers who've been approved on it, and it has two main benefits. The one is for work visas. It allows those employers to apply with fewer documents. So it puts the burden on the employer to check those documents instead of on Home Affairs. So it puts the applicant in a position to sooner submit his application because he doesn't have to wait long periods of time for documents like a SAQA verification and a professional body registration. He can do that in the background. And then the second big benefit is quicker processing times. So the department has committed to processing visas within 10 days if it's submitted in South Africa and within 20 days where it's submitted abroad. I can say feedback from our clients that we represent in terms of Trusted Employer Scheme. We've seen our first visa come through within 1 business day, submitted under Trusted Employer. We've seen most of the visas submitted in South Africa come through within the 10 business days, and certainly also the majority of those submitted abroad come through within the 20 days. So it really is working on a practical level. We've seen it roll out, and we've seen it benefiting trusted employers on an immediate basis.
What concerns do you still have?
We are definitely still concerned around the ability for those employers to manage their risk around these reduced requirements, because of course it means you don't have to submit all the requirements to the department, but you as employers still need to obtain those documents and keep them on file for audit by the Department of Home Affairs. We see most companies extremely concerned about this and making sure that they are doing the maximum to make sure that they are audit ready, but we are certainly concerned that perhaps not all employers understand the ramifications of making sure that they keep those documents on file and that they're audit ready, and the repercussion of losing your Trusted Employer Scheme status if you don't do that. So that concerns me. And then from a government perspective is getting that uniformity across all the embassies who need to actually roll out these benefits and these reduced requirements and reduced processing times, that it will take them time to all get on the same page. So while we're seeing some embassies being absolutely brilliant, we are still seeing some teething problems in other locations where they are still asking for documents not needed and still taking longer to process, with a need for escalation to get to that quicker processing time.
In terms of that audit readiness, does the department, do you think, have the capacity to actually enforce that?
I believe they do, and I believe they will make the capacity because they want to make this Trusted Employer Scheme work. It ultimately frees their hands because they don't have to review as many documents as they do with a normal application. So just the mere fact that they're saving time on the adjudication of applications frees up time for that audit process. And again, to ensure the success of the program, they have to do those audits in order to show the public that this is a responsibly run scheme where employers are not given a free-for-all, but they're held accountable to the status of being a trusted employer.
Where do we stand right now with the critical skills list?
So the critical skills list is at the moment again being revised. I actually had a call yesterday from the Department of Higher Education and Training confirming that they are running 2 workshops in the next month to get some stakeholder input as they are conducting their research at the moment to update the list. So I foresee that we will in the next, before the end of the year, see an updated version of that list published. We've been running our Xpatweb annual critical skills survey, and we are actually just about ready to publish the results of the latest survey as well, which will again feed into that list. So definitely we will in 2024, I estimate, see an updated list.
Marisa Jacobs is the MD of Xpatweb. Thank you very much for joining me.